Did you know Sonic the Hedgehog had a short-lived French comic book series that had its own art style, followed its own lore, and barely anyone remembers it? Yeah, you probably didn't. But before we get into that, let's have a quick look through Sonic's many different comic series, to see if we can find any other obscure gems. Now, in his near 30-year history, Sega have tried their hand at expanding Sonic from a video game series to a multimedia franchise. This has been done through toys, plushies, TV shows, and of course the most recent example, the Sonic movie, which shot Sonic right back into public consciousness.
I saw Jim Carrey's movie, the Sonic. I was laughing very loud. The people behind...
So maybe your last movie theater experience will have been Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Of course, though, one of their most successful attempts at branching out to other mediums with Sonic has been through comic books. In 1993, Archie Comics started the run of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. They started as wacky, comedy-focused one-offs, with little to no ongoing storyline. The story revolved around Eggman having control of Mobius, and has been turning the residents into robots. So Sonic and his band of freedom fighters try to put a stop to him. Yeah, it was basically an adaptation of Sad AM, with the same humor and stuff as Adventures of Sonic. But the Sad AM influence became a lot more apparent. When a few years into its run, it started to adapt the same kind of tone as that show. It's still aware that it's a story about a blue hedgehog fighting a fat Eggman, but it's not afraid to have long, ongoing arcs, and can get really serious at points. This is what most people know the series for. Sega were really loose with what they could get away with, and they went all out with super forms, alternate dimensions, a whole lot of romance, and some genuinely compelling stories that really gripped me as a kid. The series ran for 24 years, and was cancelled just before reaching its 300th issue. Which is sad since it wasn't even given a proper conclusion. I recall it ending with a random retelling of the classic Sonic games for some reason. We still don't really know the reason it was cancelled. Whether it was Archie trying to focus more on Riverdale and their own properties, or Sega not wanting to deal with their general incompetence. Probably still rightfully pissed about the Ken Bender situation, but I'd like to imagine it was a healthy mix of both. Although almost immediately after being cancelled, it was announced that IDW would pick up the license, and start making more comics with largely the same team. They're only about 30 issues in so far, but from what I've read they're pretty alright. Honestly, it feels like a more sterile version of the Archie comics, and that's most likely due to Sega being a lot more strict. Like not even allowing Shadow to show any kind of appreciation for his friends, and that Team Dark isn't a thing anymore and has apparently never been a thing. You know, despite Izuku making such a big deal about the teams a year ago, and the official Sega stores labeling them as Team Dark, and you know what, I'm not even gonna get into this, that's a story for a whole other day. But despite the Archie run being his most well-known comic book endeavor, there have actually been multiple more attempts at Sonic books in different regions. There was the Fleetway series, which was released in the UK known as Sonic the Comic, which was also surprisingly successful, running from 1993 to 2002, with 223 issues. Now, 39 of those issues were just reprints of previous comics, but whatever, they still count towards the number, who cares? Much like the Archie run, it mostly started as one-off episodic comedic strips, but soon got a lot more story-focused, with Sonic trying to take back the world from Robotnik. Speaking of, this series took the old Quinto Boar origin from the Sonic Pitch Bible, where Sonic started as a regular brown hedgehog who befriended a kind scientist Dr. Quinto Boar, where after a freak science experiment involving a hard-boiled egg turns him into Dr. Robotnik, and Sonic running around on this hamster wheel turns him into Sonic, it makes him blue and stuff. Yeah, I can see why they ditched this after a few years. Then there was the Sonic manga that came out in Japan in 1992. This one is strange and probably the most bizarre take on Sonic's origins, and that's saying something. In this manga we see a young schoolboy named Nicky, living in Hedgehog Town, which actually isn't that far off from what they ended up calling the town in Sonic Boom, like fucking 30 years later. Now on the outside he may seem like a regular old Joe, facing everyday issues going to school with his girlfriend Amy and lizard bully Anton Veruca. But Nicky in fact has the ability to turn into the hero Sonic the Hedgehog, who along with Tails and Charmy Bee, face off against the evil Dr. Eggman. So the manga revolves around Nicky trying to balance being a regular boy and Sonic the Hedgehog. So yeah, it's like the Sonic version of Hannah Montana. I've never seen any images of a physical one of these mangas. I'd love to own at least one of them someday, but they seem to be extremely rare to find. There have also been multiple expansions in the Archie run, with the short-lived Knuckles the Echidna comics that focused on his life with other members of the Echidna tribe. Then I think at one point he even turned green for a while. Ken Penders was wild, and I'm not interested in getting into him right now, so let's move on. There were also the comics aimed to promote certain pieces of Sonic media from the time, like the Sonic X comic that ran for 40 issues, that took place in the same universe as the show, and are actually pretty good. A lot better than the show at least. And of course the Sonic Boom comic series, which ran for an incredibly short 11 issues. It's a shame because these are definitely on par with the show in terms of comedy, with such amazing issues as Dr. Eggman Gets a Gorilla. Apparently the comics were selling fine, and there were more issues written, like I'm pretty sure there was one by Alan Denton that he wrote that never got materialized. So I guess this means Sega most likely stepped in and pulled the plug on the series. They were not secret about wanting Sonic Boom to end as soon as possible, which is strange because you'd think if they wanted Sonic Boom to run for as long as they did, they would make sure the first game was good. Then there was the Amazing Sonic Universe series, which ran concurrently with the regular Archie series, taking place in the same world. This was great as it gave them the opportunity to focus on the other characters in Sonic's expansive cast, with great stories taking place in Silver's future, the Soul Dimension, and one of my favourites following Scourge the Hedgehog having his adventures in prison. This isn't even to mention all the short one-offs they did, such as all the comics made to promote games like Lost World, Forces, and Team Sonic Racing, or the ones Sonic Channel made to celebrate the 25th anniversary. These weren't available in English, until, surprisingly, Tommy's Sonic Figure 2 packs decided to include them, so they split them into 2 issues and fully translated them in English, and paired them with the Tails and Metal Sonic figure packs. This was around the time when the Archie series ended, so they had to scramble quickly to find something to pair them with, as they'd usually just include some Archie comics in there. They're just silly little strips, but some of them are actually quite sweet. Like the one of Shadow reminiscing about Maria giving him his name before riding off into the sunset, which explains why Gerald gave what was supposed to be the savior of mankind such an ominous name. There are also a lot of deep cuts in this, like calling back to Amy being a fortune teller like in the Sonic CD manual, Marine the Raccoon is here, even Styx gets one. You should check these out if you get the chance. And all this leads us to where we are today. All these comics are fairly well known, I'm sure you must have heard of at least most of them. But there's another short-lived Sonic comic that I didn't even know existed until a few weeks ago. That being Sonic Adventures, as in the plural of adventure, not the Dreamcast game. Despite it being weird because the series only had 1 volume, so it's really just a Sonic Adventure. This was a French comic book series that was released in 1994. It stars Sonic, Tails, and Amy facing off against the evil Dr. Robotnik, but actually adds a whole lot else to its lore that differentiates itself from the Archie series. The comic was published by a company called Serene and ran for 2 volumes, Sonic Adventures in the Claws of Robotnik, and Sonic and Knuckles, The Ultimate Guide, which I assume was just a game guide for some Sonic game. If only I could figure out which one. Coming out in 1994 meant it was most likely in development around the same time as Sonic 3, so they attempted to give their own adaptation of a Sonic story, featuring the Echidnas. There's an entire tribe here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this actually makes it the first time the Knuckles clan was ever shown in an official piece of media, with the next time being Sonic Adventure in 1998. Oddly enough though, despite all these Echidnas being here, Knuckles is missing for some reason. I can only assume Sega didn't give them too much info on Sonic 3, just a quick plot synopsis. And perhaps the writer interpreted Sonic traveling to an island and upsetting its local residents, as there being an entire tribe after Sonic, not just Knuckles. But who knows, maybe they just didn't want to use Knuckles here. Even though it would have been a great way to promote the new character and therefore the game. To fill the role of Echidna sidekick, we're introduced to a brand new character only seen in the book. Princess Alucion, I think? She's this orange echidna with yellow spiked gloves, a crown, and a staff with a lightning bolt on the top. Apparently she's in possession of the Grey Emerald, which allowed her to become the ruler of the Echidnas, placing it on her crown. Sonic and Tails are caught entering their hidden city, and are brought to her as prisoners. Again, leading me to believe this was just some poor adaptation on what they thought was happening in Sonic 3. After this, she sends the both of them on a tour of their island before being executed, via lava pool. But thankfully, Dr. Robotnik shows up and captures her. And being the nice guys that they are, Sonic and Tails try to save her despite her literally trying to kill them. She breaks free of Robotnik and falls down into a hidden special stage, where she witnesses Sonic clearing it with no problem, and as a reward she grants him the 7 magic emeralds, golden armor, which is just supersonic, and the ability to be transported wherever he wants. And that's where it ends, sadly. Kind of anticlimactic, I know. And I'm not really sure why they never made any more of these. Maybe this one just didn't sell very well, who knows. What I do know is that even though it was only released in France, there exists an English translation on YouTube. That's for some reason unlisted. I had to go digging to find the link, so I'll put it in the description for anyone who wants to read it. Now, the translation isn't the best, to be fair. Like, Sonic will say stuff like, "Bah! Cleaned my feet once or twice on his mustache. No deal whipping a cream." Like, what the fuck? I have no clue what expression this is even remotely close to. but I'd still recommend reading it, as they're fairly entertaining and at the very least you'll get a look at the nice artwork. Sonic has his cartoon design, meaning he's got the mohawk. I'm already not against the mohawk look for Sonic, I think it can look cool at times, but even people who hate that design think they did a pretty good job with it here. The comic was drawn by Mr. B, which is a pseudonym without a doubt, and the colours were done by Bruno Wissel, and I think it looks great. I love the colours they use and the expressions are great for Sonic, Tails, and especially Robotnik. It reminds me a lot of the way Milton Knight drew him for the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, who by the way had a major fascination with Robotnik's ass. If you watch the cartoon you know what I'm talking about. And in his official model sheets even says stuff like, physically speaking, he's handsome, and drawing that sexy guy's handsome head. For real, go check out the model sheets for these shows. Milton Knight made some really amazing portrayals of these characters.
And he really believes in his own romantic self, and I don't know if I'm getting too adult here, but his own sexiness. Yeah, animation's sexiest fat man, yeah. And also the attention I gave to Robotnik's butt in these storyboards was something that I wasn't sure if I would get away with, but everybody really dug it.
They even unintentionally printed a lot of stuff that would later become explored more in the series, such as the ancient Echidna civilization looking very similar to the one that was later used in Sonic Adventure, which was actually inspired by real-life locations that Sonic Team traveled to for inspiration on the game, with the main structure in the Mystic Ruins being based on an actual structure in Peninsula called Tikal's Temple. Oh, Sonic Team, you sly dogs, I see what you did there. Anyway, overall, this comic looks great, and I would definitely recommend you check it out just for the art alone. But that's not to downplay the rest of it, or its other good aspects. I'm sure if I could read French and not have to deal with a shoddy translation, it'd be pretty alright. I mean, I love seeing any of this old Sonic stuff. Since Sega was a lot more loose with what the writers could get away with, it's a lot more interesting. And it's not like this comic completely tried to do its own thing. It even follows along plot points of Robotnik trying to retrieve the Grey Emerald, which originated in the Sonic Pitch Bible, and appeared in a few other comics, like I believe it's in the Fleetway one, but I'd need to read that again. Honestly, I'm just glad something like this has been archived. There's no rip of the Ultimate Sonic and Knuckles guide other than the cover, and apparently it also has a short comic in it, about Sonic and Knuckles living in a house together and playing games. But Sonic Adventures definitely sounds like the more interesting of the two, so I'm glad we got that one. I hope someday other obscure Sonic comics and mangas will be scanned and dumped online. Like, for the life of me, I still cannot find one physical image of the Sonic manga I previously mentioned, and I have no clue why since it had quite a few chapters. But even if none of those ever get revealed, I'm at least glad this one volume of some random French Sonic comic has been forever archived, and I hope I've brought the knowledge of its existence to some of you out there. Okay, you can go, video's over, I have nothing else to talk about.